is Joe again with another review. For the for the subject of this video, I'm going to be discussing a classic television show for you. I'm going to be discussing a show that originally started on NBC and finished on ABC, and that's the classic show. Excuse me, the classic show Different Strokes. Of course, on Carmen Bain, Dana Plano, Tom Bridges, and of course Gary Coleman. And also for a while starred Charlotte May. And of course, this show was one of the first, and the first, to use as a plot device a rich white guy, a rich white person, helping out poor black black kids. And it's not the first show, or this was a television show, but it was the first program to use that as a plot to help out poor little black kids by a rich white person. Of course, they did that for the movie The Blind Side, which Sandra Bullock won Academy Award for, and they used it again and again and again because of the success of Different Strokes. And of course, this show also came out with the phrase "the Different Strokes curse," because all three of the child actors on this show ended up either being on drugs or health problems, and fortunately, two of them have died, which we'll get into as I eventually go on through this video. Of course, this movie, this television show shows Carmen Bain as Philip Drummond, who is a single father to Dana Plato, who of course was the hottie on the show, and who was recently widowed, and his maid, which was never really introduced on the show, his maid recently died, and she left her two children, Willis and Arnold Jackson, played by, of course, by Todd Bridges and Gary Coleman. She left her two kids in Mr. Drummond's custody, and he eventually, over the course of the series, adopts them. And of course, you have, the various stereotypical issues that come up on this show, like Willis's old friends from Harlem, because they used to live in Harlem, the family, black family, and of course they invited them down to see, like a year later, a year or two after living with Drummond, and say, hey, maybe get this white guy. See, only white guys help us out. We don't need no help from white guys. And if one of us know which a stupid rich white guy you want to be in this because you're stupid back living with us. So what are you? Disrespectful to who you really are, and you're a black guy from Harlem. You're not a rich white guy, white kid. So you have those racial issues, pretty early on in the series, and then of course eventually as the series became more and more popular, they took out a lot of the racial stuff. Eventually, down the line. Of course, this was the show that was eventually became a spin-off, which was of course the show The Facts of Life, which I previously reviewed. Because Charlotte May was on the show for like 2.5 years, and she became a very popular character. And of course, the producers of the show of Different Strokes wanted to give Charlotte May her own program, which of course eventually became Facts of Life. And of course, check out my review on Facts of Life, because I'm not going to go into doing a Facts of Life show. But of course, Different Strokes was a very popular program. And of course, it had one of the most famous catchphrases of all time, like "What you talking about, Willis?" said by Gary Coleman. Of course, Gary Coleman was very similar to another actor who came on the scene a couple years later, which was, of course, Emmanuel Lewis, who played Webster. And both of those two shows are used exactly the same plot device. It's rich white guys trying to save or adopt a black kid. They did that in Webster, and of course, in Different Strokes was two black kids. But in Webster, they did exactly the same thing, and it became quite annoying. And of course, after that, I think they pretty much, because of the criticism, they said, "Hey, what is it? You can't have a black person adopt a rich black person adopt a black kid. You have to make him a white character." Because there was controversy over that. Not so much then, but if the show was made today in 2016, they have blacks making stink over. Say, "Hey, can the character be black? You have that. We don't need no stinking white people helping us out." That show went for the last 8 episodes, but that's 8 seasons, and that's what happened with Different Strokes. It didn't last 8 years. Now, 7 years on NBC, and then NBC decided to cancel the show after 7 years because the ratings started to drop, which shows the last how long often do. And ABC decided to pick up the show. Let's give the show one more year. So ABC came in and said, "Hey, we picked it up," which doesn't happen all that often. But once in a while, especially at that time, it was rare at that time that another network would pick up a show that was canceled on another network. But ABC picked it up, and then of course the ratings weren't that good, so just lasted 1 year on ABC. Of course, there were several notable aspects to this show. First, we'll get into the episodes, and then eventually maybe get into some controversies surrounding the three kids. The episodes, of course, one couple of episodes that was pretty noteworthy was the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar made a cameo appearance. This is when he was still playing, by the way. He made a cameo appearance. He played like a substitute teacher. Of course, he had Arnold, who had several health. Gary Coleman in real life had several health problems. That's why he remained as short as he was throughout practically his whole life. So you have him. He is shorter than I am. He was lucky to be like 5 feet tall. And you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is like over 7 feet tall. So you have that dynamic. And you have, of course, you have clips with him looking up like this. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's legs, and you have the camera pan up to Kareem. So you have that, and of course you also had Mr. T also made an appearance as a bodyguard to Arnold. And the funny thing is, before Mr. T was discovered and stored in Rocky 3 first, and then eventually, of course, the A-Team, he worked as a bodyguard. He was a big, burly, tough-looking guy with a mohawk. So he made a cameo appearance on Different Strokes, especially when the A-Team started on the same network as Different Strokes at that time. And of course, they hyped it. And it wasn't really a crossover episode, but they brought in Mr. T from the A-Team for a cameo appearance. Of course, one of the most famous cameo appearances on the history, other than the two I mentioned already, was he had First Lady, then First Lady, Nancy Reagan, made an appearance on Different Strokes for an anti-drug episode, which was rather revolutionary at that time because you didn't have all that many anti-drug shows at that time. Most of the time it was mostly anti-smoking shows, like the Brady Bunch and other shows that did that type of a plot device. And once in a blue moon, you might have a drinking an alcohol show or don't drink shows. And once in a blue moon, you might have an anti-drug show. But this was the most famous anti-drug show in history because he had Nancy Reagan and, of course, the Just Say No campaign that she had. But it's Just Say No to her, really. But she came on that show. Of course, the most famous episode, and you can't see this episode. I don't know how many episodes in total you can't see on YouTube. But recently, just today, doing this video, I found this episode was on YouTube, both parts. The famous episode on the episode is really the most famous, at least I think has the most views on. It's the episode with the child molester episode, or the pedophile episode. because he did have a very famous actor playing the part of the pedophile, and that is Gordon Jump, who starred on WKRP in Cincinnati. He played the owner of the radio station. I'm not sure if WKRP was still on the air at the time this episode was made, uh, but I think it was not too long afterwards, and he appeared as a pedophile. Now, of course, the premise of this episode was coming close to Arnold's birthday, and so Mrs. Drummond says, "Oh, let's go to the local bike shop. It's going to jump." Man, his character's name is Mr. Horn, so we go to Horn's bike shop and to get a bike. And says, "Oh, and Arnold tries to come about the bikes, and he says, "Oh, why don't you come by some other time and check out the bike again or whatever." So Arnold came by on his own a couple of times, and he brought his friend Dudley along. And Miss Horn says, "Oh, and why are you guys coming to the back of me?" So he had like a back room, like a little apartment behind the bike shop, and you can access the apartment through the bike shop. And so give him wine. He pulled the Michael Jackson on these two kids. What I mean by that is he gave them wine, saw them doing cartoons. Of course, you don't. Actually, of course, naturally, didn't really see anything. Just hear the sound effects, and the music, and a couple of sound effects. Not the sound effects of people having sex, but other sound effects, like cartoon style effects, as they were watching it. And then, of course, so oh wow, look what those mice are doing! Holy cow! It was like two mice having sex. They were naked, the two mice, and having sex. You don't see Mickey and Minnie Mouse doing that stuff, and of course they're making those types of jokes. And then Mr. Horn was taking pictures of them. At one point he encouraged Dudley to take his shirt off, and you see Dudley without a shirt on, and it's pretty shocking to see a little kid without a shirt, without bringing like a bathing suit or something. But he took his shirt off and took pictures and for some reason Gary Coleman didn't want to take his shirt off. He got maybe because of his medical conditions or whatever the case was. Because he also had kidney problems, so I guess he didn't want to take his shirt off for that. But Dudley did, and he took his shirt off, and Gordon Jones was taking pictures of the two of them. And that's how the first part ended. And of course, the second part was when Eleanor was becoming more and more comfortable with the hell was going on, because spending more and more time, like almost every afternoon, in the bike shop. And like I said, Mr. Horn was giving them wine, and Eleanor was covering up, saying, "Oh, Dudley's father gave me wine," and then Dudley said the exact opposite. That Mr. Drummond gave them wine, and Dudley's father talked to him about, "Hey, you give my kid wine?" And they found out that Arnold finally came clean and said, "Hey, he gave us wine." Mr. Horn gave us bike shop guy. He said, "Yeah." And then, of course, when I had to backtrack a little bit, it was kind of more and more uncomfortable for Arnold. He decided to leave, and he says, "Hey." Mr. Horn says to him, "Look, if he wants to leave, then leave." And so they had more fun with us. So go in the bathroom and do like a submarine type thing in the bathtub. So now it's getting, more of a worse situation there. And Arnold was in actually the famous apartment there. Says, "Hey, Dudley is still over there." And he's doing lectures. Oh my god! And Lois wants to bust in on the whole thing. He said, we're going to call the cops first." So they called the cops and they busted in on Mr. Horn, and of course he got arrested. And Dudley says he tried, and Dudley's father came in and says, Dudley said to him, "He's trying to touch me. Trying to touch me down there." And he told him to stop, and then of course when he stopped, he freaked out and he got sick because he was giving him not only alcohol but also trying to make him relax, so Mr. Horn could touch him. And of course, Mr. Horn got arrested. And of course, the rest of the year, before these two parts store, Calvin Bain, of course, played Mr. Drummond, gave an explanation as to this is very sensitive episode and subject and stuff like that. Uh, but like I said, and of course, eventually over the course of the series, uh, Mr. Drummond got remarried. First to Dixie Corder, and then her part got recast. And they had another little kid like Sam, and eventually they rolled out Dana Plato, which we'll mention right in a second. And of course, uh, Todd Bridges was also eventually not there as much anymore because they want him off to go to college or whatever. So you just had Arnold and his little stepbrother doing all kinds of adventures together, and the focus mostly on those two. And I guess that's pretty much why they killed the series because Daniel Player was running out. And the reason why Daniel Player was running out because he had the nerve to get pregnant. And we can't have Kimberly Drummond pregnant on the show because they didn't normally do that in those days unless the character unless they end up marrying the character off. They don't normally have an unwed pregnancy on a television show in those days, unless it was a soap opera. So they wrote her off, and not only that, but if you notice, Dana Plato used to wear a lot of long sleeve, either a blouse or a long sleeve or a sweater covering up a short sleeve blouse. And the reason for that is because of her bruises for her drug use. I don't know if she used heroin or not. I'm not sure, and I'm not speculating on it, but she did use drugs a lot, and so did Todd Bridges. And that's why it's known as the Different Strokes curse because of how those two, well, all three of them ended up. And Dana Plato eventually, of course, she eventually passed away from alcohol abuse, when accidental overdose of alcohol and pills. She passed away, and David Coleman passed away from his various health issues. So ironically, the only one who was in drugs even worse, more heavily into drugs than Dana Plato, and it was Todd Bridges. He's still alive. I can't figure that one out. But because Dana Plato was pregnant, and Dana Plato suggested to the producers, "Hey, when you write my pregnancy in," they didn't want to do that, so they took the other route and they rolled her character totally out. Saying, "Oh, she's studying in Paris," and of course, occasionally they have her come back occasionally on the show, but she was written out because she got pregnant. And Todd Bridges, I think it was pretty similar because they didn't know any use of his character. Not only that, but also for his drug problems. But I think it's more so they didn't really use his character or that often anymore because he had a little brother. No, Arnold was the big brother, and to a stepbrother Sam, and so they didn't need that. So they didn't need Todd Bridges, so he was freshly running out. So I guess because they ran out two of the three main kids, and they pretty much the Rain Society to fall. Of course, one other famous episodes of Different Strokes I failed to mention was that he did have a crossover thing with the show Hello Larry, called McLean Stevenson. Of course, the first time that happened, and McLean Stevenson was supposed to be playing an old army buddy of Mr. Drummond. Of course, the only famous note of that is that you saw Dana Plato in a bikini. That's the only thing notable of that, and you see how hot she was really. That and it's a real shame what happened with all three of them really. And of course, ever since then, I brought up the fact that how TV star kids turn to drugs or end up dying because of the prejudice on these young stars, and it caused the curse of Different Strokes, because all three of them had the one various drug and alcohol and health problems. So that's my review of Different Strokes. Please click on the video, please rate it, please subscribe to my channel, and please forward this video onto your Facebook pages. You can check out all of my videos not only on my YouTube channel, but also at rallyc.com. There's also WDY.com, the homepage of the Rally Reviewer. Just need more. please check out all of his content as well on his website. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.